You don't even believe in the ancient Elven Gods.
I don't believe they were gods, no, but I believe that they existed. Something existed to start the legends. If not gods, then mages. Or spirits. Or something we've never seen.
As Sola seems to imply, the Evanuris could have been a number of things. But there are my favorite two popular fan theories I want to go over in preparation for the Veilguard release. First, that the Elven Gods were something like Abominations, or second, that the Elven Gods, and maybe even the Elven people, were actually spirits who took on a physical form. Spoilers for all Dragon Age content, including some marketing material for Veilguard. So let's start with the less popular possibility that the Evanuris may have been abominations.
This is the part where you tell me you're an abomination?
The word abomination has a really negative connotation, especially in the Andrastian perspective that we're so exposed to throughout most of the games. Abomination usually refers to a demon completely taking over someone or something in the physical world, but usually it tends to be mages. In the Redcliffe Chantry in Origins, there's a codex called Demonic Possession. It says, "Why do demons seek to possess the living? History claims they're malevolent spirits, the first children of the Maker, angry at their creator for turning from them, and jealous of those creations he considered superior. They stare across the veil at the living and do not understand what they see, yet they know they crave it. They desire life. They pull the living across the veil when they sleep and prey on their psyche with nightmares. Whenever they can, they cross the veil into our world to possess it outright. We know that any demon will seek to possess a mage, and upon doing so, will create an abomination. Most of the world does not know, however, that the strength of an abomination depends entirely on the power of the demon that possesses the mage. This is true, in fact, of all possessed creatures. One demon is not the same as any other." Vivienne's dialogue with Cole also gives us a clear picture about the traditional mainstream view the Circle holds about the risk of possession.
Your apostate friend did not benefit from formal training in a circle.
How unfortunate for me.
The circle makes you afraid. Are the demons stronger there?
The circle taught me the tricks demons play to gain the trust of any mage foolish enough to listen. Solus seems to trust you. How long before you turn on him?
Solus is my friend.
But you'd like to be more, wouldn't you? You could be together forever if you possessed him. Is that not truly what you want? A body to claim your own, so you never have to return to the Fade?
So not only is there a religious reasoning in Thedas to fearing demonic possession, but the Circle trains mages to fear and be very, very cautious of any spirit/demon who might lead them astray. If you've ever played a mage in Origins, you know that the very first thing you have to do is prove your ability to withstand the temptations of a demon.
If you want to help, there may be a way for me to leave here, to get a foothold outside. You just need to want to let me in.
I mean, one of the whole points of the Templar Order's existence is to regulate mages who might succumb.
Just like all who fail in here, they'll kill you too. Can't you feel the sword at your neck? They believe all magic evil, the Fade evil. Once you are here, you become what they fear.
Most of the abominations we come into contact with tend to be pretty horrific monsters. And in Dragon Age 2, we see so many desperate, oppressed mages turn to possession as a last resort for help. Even First Enchanter Orsino turns into a weird blob monster abomination in his desperation. But despite all that, we've been given other examples that show that maybe possession doesn't have to be so parasitic, but rather more of a symbiotic relationship between a mage and a benevolent spirit rather than a demon.
It was one of these spirits that saved me. Without it, I would be dead. And it has not left me. It is with me even now, bonded to me.
Anders, everyone's favorite abomination, is probably the biggest and most dramatic example that makes us really question what we're told about possession.
So, you have this spirit of justice living in your head?
It's not like that. He's gone now. He's part of me. It's not like we can have a conversation. I feel his thoughts as my own. Not even the greatest scholar could tell you where I end and he begins.
So though Anders appears to have some struggle with managing and balancing justice, he's another example that being possessed isn't always the ugly horror show that Andrastian teachings seem to want us to believe.
Inquisitor. She is an abomination.
Besides the World of Thedas Volume 1 telling us about the Ravani seers who practice magic freely and allow themselves to be possessed, Avar mages in the Jaws of Hakon DLC also show that there are other cultures in Thedas that view possession as not that big of a deal. The Avar seem to purposely become abominations in order to train their mages.
It's time the spirit in her was free.
She's an abomination?
Every mage in the hold is made one with the gods, till they're strong enough.
I prepared. I began the spell to release the spirit here with me.
And?
I could not do it. I have no close companions in the hold, no kin. I cannot lose my only friend.
You're friends with this spirit?
It has taught me with patience and kindness since I was a child. Frightened of the fire I could suddenly call down.
It loves you too. It will stay if you want it.
I know. But I was oath-sworn to release it when the time came. I do not want to lose the one who loves me.
These two seem to be so closely tied since childhood that she can't give up something that has become such a loving part of herself. Also in the DLC, when we're searching for Ameridan, we come across a spirit who seems to have been a spirit companion of Ameridan's lover, Talana.
Talana slept. I slept. To find him in dreaming. But the blood. She's gone. Talana wanted to reach Ameridan again. One more time. But she couldn't. I couldn't. I died.
But this spirit touched the mind of someone who cared for Inquisitor Ameridan.
Ameridan. Yes. Inquisitor. Beloved. She came with Ameridan to hunt the dragon. She went a long time ago. I stayed because she asked.
While it's not explicitly said, I had this feeling that the spirit and Talana were once one, possibly like Wynn or Anders. The spirit seems to have trouble differentiating herself from Talana, mixing up her and I quite often. I also wonder if perhaps Ameridan was an abomination as well.
My spirit companion believes we can seal the dragon away.
Or I guess he could have just been talking about a literal companion, more like Cole or Justice and Awakening. I don't know, but either way it seems that back then, mages and spirits weren't as taboo as they are in present-day Thedas.
Has history forgotten so much?
So, maybe going even further back to the times of ancient Arlathan, it was even less taboo. So why might all this relate to the Elven Gods? Well, the first big clue is Flemethal.
Once I was but a woman, crying out in the lonely darkness for justice. And she came to me, a wisp of an ancient being, and she granted me all I wanted and more. I have carried Mythal through the ages ever since, seeking the justice denied to her.
Somehow, the powerful spirit of Mythal made its way to the powerful mage Flemeth, and they combined in a way that's similar to Anders and Justice, or one of the other more peaceful abominations we've seen. Could this wisp she's talking about have been the powerful spirit that was once bonded to a powerful elven mage in the time of Elvenon, thus calling itself Mythal? The codex found in the Vir Dirthara in the Trespasser DLC shows us that elves and spirits once casually worked together. It says, "The pages of this book, Memory, show a solemn group of elves in an amphitheater of living wood, entire trees grown into seats and stairs for the listeners to recline on. 2 other elves and a spirit of learning are speaking in turn on ways to bend the properties of the material world when casting spells. At the end, the spirit, with the air of a senior lecturer, floats forward and booms in a surprisingly deep voice." This codex shows a specific distinction between spirits and elves at this lecture. If the normal beings that existed in Thedas in the pre-Veil world were immortal spirits and elves, I would think there must have been something that set the Evanuris apart besides just plain old clout. Could it be that they were a combo of both powerful elf and powerful spirit? Or I wonder if it's possible to host several different spirits at the same time. But here I go again, getting a little carried away on an already pretty tinfoily theory. Anyways, the Elven Gods Falun Din and Dirthamin are described in a pretty similar way to how we see some of the friendlier abominations described, as in very close. Almost too close, with very little differentiation between them. The Twins in Shadow Codex says, Dirthamin and Falun Din are linked in Dalish legend as inseparable twin brothers. Scraps of elven stories from after the fall of Arlathan, transcribed into Tevinter and recently lent to our fair university, refer to them as twin souls, but draw no family connection. The oldest stories never even name them directly, referring to Falun Din as Dirthamin's shadow and Dirthamin as Falun Din's reflection. The little we understand implies their bond was not romantic, beyond even the strongest friendship. The legends of Dirthamin and Falun Din may have been an allegory for complex elven relationships we lack context to comprehend. Dirthamin's codex, according to Dalish legend, says, the twins Falun Din and Dirthamin are the eldest children of Elgarnon the Allfather and Mithal the Protector. The brothers were inseparable from the moment of their conception, known for their great love for each other. That is why we often speak of Falun Din in one breath and Dirthamin the next, for they cannot bear to be apart, not even in our tales. When the world was young, the gods often walked the earth, and Falun Din and Dirthamin were no exception. Both were delighted by the many wonders of our earth. They played with the animals, whispered to the trees, and bathed in the lakes and streams. Their days were filled with bliss, and they did not know sorrow. And then one day, while passing through the forest, Falun Din and Dirthamin came across an old and sickly deer resting beneath a tree. "Why do you sit so still, little sister?" asked Falun Din. "Play with us," said Dirthamin. "Alas," spoke the deer, "I cannot. I am old, and although I wish to go to my rest, my legs can no longer carry me." Taking pity on the deer, Falun Din gathered her up into his arms and carried her to her rest beyond the veil. Dirthamin tried to follow them, but the shifting gray paths beyond the veil would not let him. Separated for the first time from Falun Din, Dirthamin wandered aimlessly till he came across two ravens. "You are lost, and soon you will fade," the raven named Fear said to Dirthamin. "Your brother has abandoned you. He no longer loves you," said the other, named Deceit. "I am not lost, and Falun Din has not abandoned me," replied Dirthamin. He subdued the ravens and bade them carry him to Falun Din. This they did, for they had been defeated and were now bound to Dirthamin's service. When Dirthamin found Falun Din, he found also the deer, who once again was light on her feet, for her spirit was released from her weakened body. Both Falun Din and Dirthamin rejoiced to see this. Falun Din vowed that he would remain to carry all the dead to their place beyond, just as he did the deer, and Dirthamin stayed with him, for the twins cannot bear to be apart. Now we know the Dalish codices we find aren't always 100% correct, but there's always some sliver of truth or some symbolism to them. We know from Solus that the veil didn't exist before he trapped the Elven Gods away, but codices from the Vir Duthara that talk about the unchanging world and the fact that Uthanera was even a thing seems to indicate that the Fade and the physical world were still somehow kind of distinct from each other, even before the veil. So if Dirthamin couldn't follow Falun Din, does that mean that maybe Falun Din was the spirit and Dirthamin the elf? The names of the ravens that helped Dirthamin, Fear and Deceit, also sound like demon names. Could the elf Dirthamin have become an abomination with a couple of demons to get to his true spirit companion, Falun Din? I know, a lot of speculation based off of some really vague ideas, but let's keep going, because I love crackpot tinfoil, and if you're with me this long, I'm thinking you probably do too. The Codex entry Beyond the Veil, Spirits and Demons says, each one seizes upon a single facet of human experience: rage, hunger, compassion, hope, etc. This one idea becomes their identity.
We were going to work together, bring justice to every child ever ripped away from his mother to be sent to the Circle. But I guess I had too much anger. Once he was inside me, he changed. He comes out. And he is no longer my friend, Justice. He is a force of vengeance, and he has no grasp of mercy.
So he tells us about how his spirit friend, who represented justice, was twisted into its darker counterpart, vengeance. Solus explains something similar in his personal quest in Inquisition.
A spirit becomes a demon when denied its original purpose.
His friend that we attempt to rescue was a spirit of wisdom corrupted into a pride demon. The Elven Gods also seem to similarly represent different facets of experience. And I think it's really interesting how Mythal is associated with justice, like Anders' spirit friend, and Elgernon is associated with vengeance, like the twisted form of Anders' spirit friend. I may be reaching a little, okay, maybe a lot, but it seems like all of the Evanuris, unless you count Fen'Harel, are sort of paired off like that too. Mythal and Elgernon, justice and vengeance. Gillenane and Andruil, a life creator and a life taker. I wonder if all of their true natures could have been more like two sides of the same coin. This makes me think of the Codex Ancient Elven writing. His crime is high treason. He took on a form reserved for the gods and their chosen, and dared to fly in the shape of the divine. The sinner belongs to Dirthamin. He claims he took wings at the urging of Gillenane, and begs protection from Mythal. She does not show him favor, and will let Elgernon judge him. So in this situation, it seems to imply that simple protection and fair justice was denied this sinner, and vengeance was used instead. Could what was known as Elgernon just be another facet of what was also known as Mythal, but the more vengeful side of her?
In most stories, Mythal rights wrongs while exercising motherly kindness. Let fly your voice to Mythal, deliverer of justice, protector of sun and earth alike. Other paint her as dark, vengeful. Pray to Mythal and she would smite your enemies, leaving them in agony.
The oldest accounts say Mythal was both of these, and neither. She was the mother, protective and fierce. That is all I will say.
Mythal clawed and crawled her way through the ages to me, and I will see her avenged!
And we hear a lot about the Elven Gods and their chosen. I've never really been sure about what exactly that might mean, other than maybe their best friend, or their lover, or their champions or something. But what if their chosen was actually the powerful elves' spirit companions, or vice versa? Was this why Solus says the first of his people don't die so easily? Did they take their spirits and body hop like Mythal did to Flemeth and with plans to continue on to Morrigan? This is how the archdemons and Corypheus managed to stay alive, but with blight magic. Did the Evanuris do something similar but with a different kind of magic? Now let's explore the more commonly accepted theory about what the Elven Gods were.
Mother never told me the Inquisitor was an elf.
That's not such a terrible thing, is it?
No, I just don't know why your people want to look like that.
Kieran seems to imply that the Elven people have chosen to look the way they do. This has led many fans to suspect something must be up with the Elven people and their origins. With his statement, and a few other hints in the games and books, people have theorized that this could mean that the Elven were actually spirits from the Fade, who chose to take on a physical form in the material world. So were the Elven Gods the first of these spirits who manifested physically? It seems to me like this theory holds a little more weight with the fandom than the last, and it also kind of bleeds into the theory of, well, everything. I think most of the basis of the evidence for this theory is mostly just a list of codices from Trespasser and passing comments by a few characters in the game, primarily Cole and Solus. I mean, after all, Cole is the prime example of this theory coming to life. He's a spirit who didn't just possess a body, he manifested physically. He sets the precedent that this is a possible thing to do.
Demons normally enter this world by possessing something. In their true form, they look bizarre, monstrous.
But Cole looks like a young man. Could it be possession?
No. He has possessed nothing and no one. And yet he appears human in all respects.
And Solus, who we find out is an ancient elf from the time of ancient Elvenon, seems to be a kind of coach to Cole.
It's brighter here. Glittering, glaring, glinting. I can't...
It's a mild tremor in the veil. Nothing to worry about. Focus on what is here, in this world.
But what is here?
Feel the ground, the breath in your lungs, fabric rustling against your skin.
Thank you.
It's nothing. It can be overwhelming for anyone.
Solus seems to be helping ground Cole to the physical realm. The way he coaches him seems like it's something he's familiar with. Like it's something he's done before.
You're different, Solus. Sharper. You're in both places.
While Solus deflects and blames it on being a Fade fanboy, if we imagine that elves are spirits become flesh, This could explain why he has a bit of both the Fade and the material world as part of him that Cole can detect. Solus even seems to have difficulty remembering.
You don't need to envy me, Solus. You can find happiness in your own way.
I apologize for disturbing you, Cole. I am not a spirit, and sometimes it is hard to remember such simple truths.
Cole seems to pick up on Solus being unhappy with not being a spirit. This aligns with a strange statement Cole makes in Trespasser.
He did not want a body, but she asked him to come. He left a scar when he burned her off his face.
Could Cole be talking about Solus? Was he happy in his spirit form, but called to come by someone in the physical world? This mysterious statement by Cole is begging for me to dive into who she could be and what burning her off his face means, and I have some ideas, but that's another theory for another time. Anyways, back to the point. So what does this have to do with the Elven Gods? Let's look deeper at the story of Elgar'nan. The Codex Elgar'nan, God of Vengeance, says, "Long ago, when time itself was young, the only things in existence were the sun and the land. The sun, curious about the land, bowed his head close to her body, and Elgar'nan was born in the place where they touched. The sun and the land loved Elgar'nan greatly, for he was beautiful and clever. As a gift to Elgar'nan, the land brought forth great birds and beasts of sky and forest, and all manner of wonderful green things. Elgar'nan loved his mother's gifts, and praised them highly and walked amongst them often." As I mentioned earlier, we know that Keeper Gisharel, the author of most of the codices about Dalish beliefs, is not always 100% accurate or informed about what he writes. However, there's always some symbolism or a sliver of truth in them. So if we take the earth in this story to mean the physical material world, could the sun be the Fade? This might mean that who we know as Elgar'nan came to be by the Fade and the physical touching and becoming one. If Elgar'nan was the first spirit to become physical, Mythal must have been the second. Her codex tells us that she emerged from the tears of the earth to help calm Elgar'nan. Perhaps the first 8 spirits who manifested physically were the 8 Evanuris. After all, Elgar'nan's name literally has the word spirit or Elgar in Elven, as we learn in the Masked Empire. And the other ancient elves we know of seem to also have names that represent spirit-like names also. I mean, Solus himself is named Pride. Abelas is named Sorrow. Could the names that these Elven have taken be representative of what spirit they were before becoming corporeal? This brings to mind another mysterious statement Cole makes in Trespasser.
They made bodies from the earth, and the earth was afraid. It fought back, but they made it forget.
Did this become a regular common thing for the spirits to do? Did they come to the earth where it sounds like Titans reigned and start imperializing and colonizing? Let's go back to the codex found in the Verdure Thara in Trespasser called Attentive Listeners. Remember, here we could see elves and spirits working together, giving a lecture about the physical world in a way that sounds like it's something pretty new to them. So if elves were slowly learning to become physical outside of the Fade, it's no wonder Solus has a lot to say about the matter. He's seen it all happen before.
You may well become fully human after all. I never thought to see it.
When did you see it before?
I did not say that I had.
No, you didn't. It's harder to hear, sometimes. Sorry.
Good luck, Cole. You have taken a difficult road.
The codex, also from the Verdure Thara called Exile of the Forbidden Ones, says, "The pages of this book, Memory, show the blazing forms of the Evanuris banishing a howling spirit from the reaches of the Fade that touch their lands. A voice rings out, stern and imperial. For abandoning the people in their time of greatest need, for casting aside form to flee to where the earth could not reach, we declare Zebenkek and others of her ilk exiled from the lands of the Evanuris. Beware, their familiarity with shape allows them to travel paths unaided. They may be bound, but only the protection of your gods will fully shield you from their malice. They are forbidden from the earth that is our right." This sounds like the Forbidden Ones, demons whom we have fought as optional bosses in all 3 games so far, were also originally a part of this whole theoretical spirit-turned-flesh imperialization of the physical realm. But they were deserters. It specifically states how they have familiarity with shape, and they chose to cast aside form. The last Forbidden One that we have yet to meet is even called the Formless One. form, physical. Another codex from the Vir Dithara says, "The pages of this book, Memory, are instructions on how to reach the deepest parts of the Fade, realms so far removed they're unmarked by dreamers. Epiphany requires a mind smooth as mirror glass, still as stone. Put aside 10 years for practice, and the next 100 for searching. What others have learned will ease your journey. Those who never manifested outside the Fade will find it easier to find its stillest roots, but it is rare that compulsion overtakes our brethren of the air." I think this is the clearest clue that the elven people could have once been spirits. This codex talks about manifesting outside of the Fade and calls spirits brethren. This codex also seems to be talking about kind of doing the opposite, about how to find one's way back to the Fade and shedding your physical form, and maybe literally becoming a spirit of epiphany. Is this what Uthenera was then? Leaving the physical body behind to return their true spirit selves back to the Fade?
In the days of Arlathan, the elders came here to sleep. Uthenera, the endless dream they called it.
For those who need a refresher, the Codex on Uthenera describes it as such. To the ancient elves who existed during the times of Arlathan, Uthenera was an act of reverence. Elves did not age. They were not immortal, but they did not suffer from deterioration of mind or body. They suffered only from a deterioration of the spirit. It did not happen often, but the oldest of the elves were said to reach a point where they become weary of life. Memories became too much to bear, and rather than fade into complacency, they voluntarily stood aside to let newer generations guide their people. Uthenera means the long sleep, in which the elder would retire to a chamber that was 1 part bed and 1 part tomb. To great ceremony from all the extended family, the elder would succumb to a slumber from which they would not wake for centuries, and often never. In time, the body would deteriorate, and the elder would die in truth. All the while, family would continue to visit the chamber to pay respect to one who made such a great sacrifice. With the arrival of humans and the quickening of elven blood that ensued, the practice of Uthenera began to fade. When Arlathan fell, it ceased forever. Felisan, an ancient elf from the book The Masked Empire, tells us, most of those who entered Uthenera could survive on a simple potion, water with honey and herbs added to keep the body alive. Servants would brush it across the lips of the dreamer at the full moon, and then smell the naked wrist of the dreamer at the new moon. If they smelled the perfumed scent of the herbs, it meant that the concoction had been drawn into the body, and they would keep feeding the dreamer. If the wrist was bare of scent, then it meant that the dreamer had learned to draw sustenance from the Fade itself and would never need to be fed again. Those true dreamers were placed in beds of purest white, signifying the dreamer's achievement of perfection. He smiled and shook his head, or so the old songs say. This aligns with what we know about spirits.
Do you need to eat, Cole, or sleep?
I thought I had to, but I don't. The old songs can pull me.
The World of Thedas Volume 2 also notes that Solus ate very little, so he also must have been able to sustain himself through the Fade.
The legends of elven immortality. Did they use magic to increase their lifespan?
No. It was simply part of being elven. The subtle beauty of their magic was the effect, not the cause of their nature.
Another interesting tidbit is to look at elven genetics. We see examples of characters who have one elven parent and one parent of another race, but the characters always have the characteristics of the other race, not the elven part of them. Alistair is a prime example. His mother is Grand Enchanter Fiona, an elf, and he shows no elven characteristics. Sir Michel, the chevalier we meet in The Masked Empire and in Emprise de Leon in Inquisition, is a half-elf. He looks fully human and reacts to the crossroads in the same way the humans do, not elves. To build on this, in the old defunct BioWare forums, David Gator, the ex-lead writer, made a post that says, "The child of elf-blooded humans and an elf is another elf-blooded human. Whether or not such a line would eventually become more elven is unknown. The elf-blooded don't tend to distinguish themselves as a group for cultural reasons, and more often than not find themselves living amongst humans rather than elves. Saying that elves have recessive genes obviously isn't the answer, I said a long time ago on the forums that elven genetics were adaptive, but that's just an attempt to explain the phenomenon, since people were insisting on talking about genetics. The elves don't know why it happens, and there's no understanding of genetics in the world to explain it, if that would even be the reason. More likely, it has a supernatural origin relating to the nature of the elves themselves. Though what that might be, and whether or not the elves were truly once immortals they claim, simply isn't known. Could this possibly be, because, as he says, that the supernatural origin relating to the nature of elves themselves is that they're not fully grounded in the physical realm? Their genes are adaptive, as he called it, whereas the other races are more firmly solid in the physical form. In the book Tevinter Nights, the story The Dreadwolf Take You, Solas is talking to the elven spy in Inquisition. He says, "I have no choice. What I'm doing will save this world and those like you, the elves who still remain, may even find it better when it is done." We know Solas's plan.
I would have entered the Fade using the mark you now bear. Then I would have torn down the veil. As this world burned in the raw chaos, I would have restored the world of my time. The world of the elves. My people fell for what I did to strike the Evanuris down. But still, some hope remains for restoration. I will save the elven people, even if it means this world must die.
I never thought of you as someone who would do that, Solas.
Thank you.
It sounds like he expects that elves will be able to survive, and I think there's a good chance it's because the elves once did. So what do you guys think? Which theory resonates more with you?